So at the start of the season, I made my predictions for how I saw the championship table finishing, but we also went ahead and did the same and simulated the full season on FIFA before a ball had been kicked. And in today's video, we're going to be going back to that video and reacting to the table that FIFA had predicted for the 21/22 championship season. Next week, I'll be reacting to my own table that I predicted from the start of the year, but I thought this would be an interesting comparison point to see who was more accurate in the end, myself or FIFA. So let's hop into what FIFA had predicted at the start of the season. Starting out at the bottom of the table, they did have Derby County picking up 27 points. Now I've gone ahead and applied the 21 point deduction from the simulation that FIFA did. I think in the actual table they had Derby predicted to finish around about 18th or something like that on 48 points, but with the 21 point deduction they would have finished bottom on 27. They've actually gone on to outperform that in real life. Without the point deduction this season, Derby would already be on 55 points for the season, but that is 1-for-1 for FIFA in terms of correctly predicting one of the relegated three sides, like I think most people had Derby down at the bottom at the start of the season. This next one's going to catch a lot of people out though, because FIFA had Blackpool predicted to finish in 23rd place on 32 points, vastly outperforming that this season. And to be fair to FIFA, if we go back and revisit that prediction video I did from the start of the season, a hell of a lot of people had Blackpool in their bottom threes, and I'd even suggest that they were probably the most popular choice out of the three that were being promoted that people had in their bottom threes at the start of the season. Of course, none of that has materialised and they've been comfortably in mid-table for the majority of the season. And FIFA predicted Reading to take up that final relegation spot. Once again, the same way I did for Derby, I've applied their point deduction to the total that FIFA predicted them to finish on, and that did have Reading finishing 22nd in the championship. Not a million miles away in the end, as obviously because of an accumulation of things really, that losing run they went on under Paunovic, the point deduction, the injuries they've had throughout the year have all accumulated in a relegation battle for Reading, but obviously it's not resulted in a bottom three finish. So just 1 out of 3 FIFA managed to correctly predict for the relegation places. Next up, they had Hull finishing in 21st place on 42 points, and not the worst prediction in the world here from FIFA, to be honest. Hull have been in and amongst this region of the table for the majority of the season. Obviously, they were in the bottom three for quite some time before they had that first winning run under Grant McCann. Since then, really, have just about been able to keep their head above water. Coming in 20th place, they've then gone for Barnsley on 44 points. Now, to be fair to FIFA, at the start of the season, I think there would have been a hell of a lot of predictions that had Barnsley significantly higher up in the pecking order after coming off the back of a playoff finish last time under Ishmael. Barnsley were a little bit of a wild card coming into this season because no one really quite knew what to expect from them, what their actual level was going to be after all the chops and changes that had happened at that club over the summer. It's accumulated in one of the worst championship campaigns we've seen over the last decade, but I don't think many people called that at the start of the season. In 19th place, FIFA had predicted Cardiff to finish here, which is bang on the money as of right now. They're currently 19th in the table as of recording this video, and been a bit of a topsy-turvy season for Cardiff really. There were some expectations on them at the start of the season that they could potentially challenge again under Mick McCarthy, but things there quickly unravelled and it's been left to Steve Morrison to sort of pick up the pieces. They predicted my side, Preston North End, to finish in 18th place, which is pretty much where I predicted us to finish at the start of the season, to be fair. And it looked more than likely that it would be this region of the table had we continued much longer with Frankie McAvoy. But obviously, Ryan Lowe then came in for the second half of the season and we've had a little bit of a bounce in terms of our results. We've tried to trend a little bit more towards the top half of the table. But once again, not the worst shout in the world here. They did have a little bit of a nightmare with Peterborough though, who they predicted to finish in 17th place. FIFA had predicted Peterborough to be the best performing of the newly promoted clubs, and in the end that's been the complete reversal. They've been the worst performing of the three to come up from League One. Obviously the only side, newly promoted side, to have been relegated this season, and it does still have a feeling of what if for Peterborough had they made that managerial change earlier on in the season, but I guess we'll never know, and that they'll now be gearing up for another season in League One. FIFA had Swansea predicted to finish in 16th place with 55 points, which once again isn't the worst prediction in the world. They're currently one place higher than that, but have spent the majority of the season in and around sort of 16th place. Start of the season there was quite a bit of inconsistency and they've seemed to have curved that in the second half of the season, but not an awful shout with that one either. I have a feeling that Coventry may have caught a few people out this season with how well they've done, but FIFA had them predicted to finish in 15th place, which was around about where they were in the table last season, but obviously they've gone one better than that. I've been a mostly comfortable to sort of top 10 side for the majority of this season, but they had them 15th on 56 points. And undoubtedly a side who have caught a lot of people's predictions out this season will have been Luton Town. FIFA had them predicted 14th on 56 points once again, which, I mean, I think I had them in and amongst the top 10. We'll see on next week's video just where I had them predicted, but I don't think all too many people would have been as brave enough to go ahead and back them for a top 6 finish, but what a job Nathan Jones has done there. Another side who are going to catch a lot of people out this season are Huddersfield, and this isn't even the worst prediction in the world here from FIFA, who had them predicted to finish in 13th place on 56 points. Hell of a lot of people had them predicted for a bottom 3 finish this time around after how poor they were at times last season, a real sense of inconsistency, and there was quite a bit of reshaping that had to be done with that squad as well, but Carlos Corberán proved a hell of a lot of people wrong this season, including me. Blackburn in 12th place isn't all too far off where they will eventually go ahead and finish. At one point it looked like they were bang on for a top 6 finish, but how this second half of the season has unfolded, that will no longer be the case. But once again, a lot of people would have had Blackburn significantly lower predicted than this, me included. QPR, FIFA's got pretty much bang on. They had them 11th on 57 points. I think a lot of people, I think they were probably the most backed dark horse at the start of the season for a top 6 finish, with all the momentum they ended last season with, how well they actually started this time around, and the general recruitment and the feeling around Mark Warburton and the club. But it's been a shame to see how the second half of the season has sort of unfolded, and ultimately the fact that Mark Warburton won't be there next season now. Millwall in 10th place isn't a bad shout either. They had them 10th on 59 points. Looks like they're going to push for a playoff spot, but may just fall short on the final day. They're 3 points off at the moment and needed quite a big goal difference swing to head in their favour. But with Millwall, they've been pretty consistent over the last stint they've had in the Championship, really, with knocking on the door for the top 6, but just falling short at that final hurdle. Middlesbrough are going to run it close in terms of a top 6 finish on the final day as well, and FIFA had them predicted to finish in 9th place on 61 points, in I think a similar part of the table where I had them predicted to finish as well. Obviously Middlesbrough have gone through quite the transformation actually from where they were at the start of the season under Neil Warnock compared to where they are now under Chris Wilder, not just in terms of the squad and personnel and how that's changed, but general style of play, and I think feeling around the club heading into next season as well, regardless of what happens on the final day for them. So FIFA have had a pretty good run recently, but this is where their luck starts to run out, because they had predicted Birmingham to finish in 8th place on 67 points, and they've got absolutely nowhere near that throughout this season. It's been another largely inconsistent year for Birmingham, who are probably massively thankful that other clubs around them have had point deductions, or they'd be right in it going into the final day in terms of, you know, fearing for relegation. At the start of the season, Stoke really flirted with a top 6 finish, and I still go back to that game where they came to Deepdale. You know, they were, for me, one of the best outfits that I've seen come to Preston in the first half of the season, but injuries set in, and in typical Stoke fashion, they faltered in the second half of the season and ultimately have flattered to deceive really in this second portion of the year. But FIFA had them 7th on 69 points, which is whereabout I think a lot of people had them pegged to finish. FIFA's had another bit of a howler with this one. They predicted Bristol City to finish in 6th place on 72 points. Now, to be fair to Bristol City, they have had their moments throughout the season, and at times their forward 3 especially have played like a side who are in contention for a top 6 finish. Vyman's been fantastic, who FIFA actually predicted to score 19 goals this season, which wasn't a bad shout from them either, but ultimately their defensive record has let them down, and massive portions of inconsistency throughout the season. I think you'll be quite hard pressed to find a prediction video at the start of the season that didn't have West Brom in their top 6. I was no different, FIFA was no different. They had them predicted to finish 5th on 83 points, but that's not been the case, has it? The first portion of the season, to be fair, even with performances not exactly being the greatest on the eye, they were still grinding out results in the early months under Ishmael. But once that started to go a bit wrong and they started to falter, they obviously tried to bring Bruce in for that bounce, got nothing of the sort, and have ultimately slumped towards a really disappointing mid-table finish. They bring it back though a little bit with this prediction, because they predicted Nottingham Forest to finish in 4th place on 89 points. points. Forest have been such a wild card this season because we have to take into consideration, start of the season it was Houghton as the manager. They sort of flattered to deceive in previous seasons gone by before. Obviously, they had that one season under Lamucci where they really should have made it into the top 6. But apart from that, have really just been a sort of mediocre mid-table side. Steve Cooper's been able to take this team to another level though, and FIFA obviously had the foresight to go ahead and predict that previously, predicting them for a 4th place finish. At the start of the season, I think that Fulham were easily the most backed side to go ahead and win the championship, but FIFA wasn't going with the crowd. They actually had them predicted to finish in 3rd and just miss out on automatic promotion, albeit with a really high points total of 91 points. And to pip them into 2nd place, they had Sheffield United on 91 points. To be fair, Sheffield United were a pretty heavily backed side, I think, at the start of the season in terms of an automatic promotion place. I think that generally the 3 that we tend to look most into are the 3 immediately coming down from the Premier League, but after how the first portion of the season had unfolded for Heckingbottom, I think it came increasingly, clear that that wouldn't happen. Threatened to maybe do so when they had that spell where they had about sort of like 5 games in hand after all the games they had cancelled over Christmas, but it's been a good run in the second half of this season, albeit not good enough for a top 2 finish. And to win the league and to absolutely blow everyone else out of the water, FIFA have predicted Bournemouth to pick up 101 points and go ahead and absolutely blitz it this time round. FIFA obviously having immense faith in Scott Parker's capabilities at the start of the season. But to be fair, it's not been the first place finish for Bournemouth, but they have been in and amongst the top 2 for the vast majority of the season, and that top 4 isn't the worst shout in the world, I don't think. But as you can see to the side of me, those are FIFA's predictions from the start of the season, and I think that's a little bit of a mixed bag, to be honest. And to be completely fair to FIFA, I think a lot of other people's predictions from the start of the season would have been significantly worse than FIFA's gone ahead and done there. I think that in terms of the predictions we've got from FIFA in the past, that's probably, dare I say it, the most accurate one we've ever got. But there we have it, guys. That will now wrap it up for today's video. Next week I will be reacting to my personal predictions from the start of the season when everything is confirmed in the championship. But if you went on to enjoy today's video, make sure to leave a like and do stick around and subscribe for some regular championship content. Loads coming out over the next few weeks. But apart from that, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you all in the next one.